Good morning, everybody. You've reached the Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Szerman on KHTS, FM 98.1, AM 1220, your hometown station. And thank you guys for tuning in. We got a great show today. We're going to talk about an issue that I've kind of shied away from talking about because I haven't had a really good example until recently. We're going to talk all today about HOAs, and one case in particular about Kaufman & Broad Homes and their recent bad behavior with an HOA locally, some stuff that you guys should all know. I don't think people know nearly enough about HOAs. Because they just think of them as a nuisance. Nobody seems to like them. They think of them as a nuisance and an expense. But they don't understand how much power an HOA truly can have over your life and over your property. It is kind of terrifying. We're going to talk about all that today. Special guest, Sophia Lesseos, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, she'll correct me if I'm wrong, who wrote a story about the HOA in this Kaufman & Broad community in Canyon Country, and we're going to have one of the homeowners in as well. We're going to talk about all of that today, get into that story. But first, as always, I'd like to start the show with what's going on in the real estate market. And for those of you who've been paying attention or who listen to the show regularly, I will simply reiterate what I said last time, which is prices are coming down. What I've been saying now for, probably the last 6 months, maybe longer, is if you have a house to sell, you want to get on it now because prices are starting to slide, and more importantly, it better be a deal. Because the days of my neighbor's house sold for $1.1 million, I'm going to sell mine for $1.15 million are over. Prices are starting to come down, and unless you have something special about your house that makes it, maybe yours has the best price, maybe yours is the only one in the neighborhood with a view or the remodeled kitchen or a pool, whatever it is. But unless you got something special going on with your house, it's not going to sell. And most of that is going to be pricing. So let's talk about this. Let me just read you some of the headlines I picked up just from the last couple of days. April existing home sales, these are national. April existing home sales missed slowest pace since 2009. That's CNBC. Home prices stagnant or declined in 15 of the top 40 markets in April. 3 of those markets are California, by the way. 5 warning signs that the housing market is heading for correction. And more locally, California home sales retreat for second straight month in April. Prices are coming down, and the chief reason for this is interest rates are still way too high. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And the prices, there just aren't as many buyers. It's supply and demand, as it always is. 8 months ago, 10 months ago, a year ago, we had very few houses on the market, and the interest rates, especially during the pandemic, were very low. They came up a bit, for sure. And they got up way too high when they got up over 7%, and now they're back. They got down to about 6 3/4. For a minute there, it got down to about 6.5, and now we're back up to 7% again. And so supply and demand. If your supply goes up, and by the way, they're about 40%, let this number sink in for a second, 40% more residential real estate on the market right now than there was 90 days ago. That is a heck of a lot of people bringing houses to market in California. That's just the last 3 months. And year over year, it's up as well. So it's kind of ridiculous. And that's fine. A lot of people say, well, it's just returning to pre-pandemic levels. And that's true. That's fine. And we need that to happen. And we're talking about the lock-in effect and low interest rate and all the stuff we won't bore you with. But the bottom line is you have more houses coming to market. Many more houses. They have that nationally. In California, we see more coming to market than almost any place else. It's us, Texas, and Florida are leading the way with houses coming to market en masse and prices starting to come down. We're still not as bad off as Florida and most of Texas, but we are starting to have some problems because prices are going to come down. Existing home sales fell in April 0.5%, this is nationally, to a seasonally adjusted rate of 4 million units. Sales are down 2% from April last year. The street was looking for a gain of 2.7%. So that's a 4.7% swing from what Wall Street expected to what happened. Now, why? Why is the market not performing reasonably, not performing in an expected manner? Something as large as the real estate market, the residential real estate market in the United States, which is a huge multi-billion-dollar market. It's about, well, ancillary stuff. It's about a quarter of our GDP is tied to residential real estate, which is kind of incredible. And the reason it's down is one reason. The reason it's sliding as much as it is, there are many reasons, but there's one big one, and that is the occupant of the White House. And I really try to keep my political opinions to myself because it's not a political show. But in this case, those politics coming out of the White House are directly affecting the value of your home. And it's going to get worse because the one thing, whether you like the occupant of the White House right now or not, the one thing I will tell you for certain is markets abhor chaos. And he is Captain Chaos. That's what he does. The only thing dumber than these tariffs was to pause them for 90 days because we have no idea what's going on. And then yesterday he's going to tariff Apple? You can't tariff a particular company. You tariff countries. That he doesn't even have the depth of knowledge to understand how tariffs work, yet he's the guy who's setting them and going out telling us it's not a tax. Of course it is. If you like guacamole and you get avocados from Mexico, the store you buy them from is going to pay more for that avocado. Their profit margins are not wide enough to eat the tariff, as he likes to say. And what that means is that avocado cost, the additional cost of that, as a tax, because it's a cost levied by the government, that's a tax, is going to be passed on to the consumer. So you're going to pay more for guacamole. That's just the way it works. Now, as prices go up, inflation goes up because of this nonsensical tariff nonsense. And by the way, foreign countries don't pay the tariff. The consumer pays the tariff. The importer pays the tariff, and they pass it on to the consumer. That's it. It's not more complicated than that. To pretend that it is intellectually dishonest. But we're raising taxes. That is really what this means. And the idea that you're going to give a tax cut to the wealthy to somehow help somebody, middle class who's going to go buy guacamole tomorrow, isn't going to happen. Trickle-down economics, supply-side economics do not work. I think we conclusively proved that in the 80s. Making the rich richer does not make the poor anything other than poorer. It does not help, and it certainly doesn't help the middle class. But we're back to that nonsense again because it's an easy tagline. We're lowering taxes. Oh, not on you. But if you're wealthy, then sure. Same thing with the estate tax, because everybody believes they're going to inherit. So we get away with this nonsense, or politicians get away with this nonsense all the time, and they're just wrong, and we always pay the price. And because we have no institutional memory, we do this over and over and over again. So what's going on is the tariffs have destabilized the market. The talk of tariffs have destabilized the market. That's caused the bond markets to go up. The 10-year Treasury bond is not quite at a record high because it was a record high when he first announced the tariffs, but it's been going up consistently. And as a result, interest rates have also gone back up. So instead of interest rates coming down over the course of this year, which is what they should have done, we should have gotten to 6.5% or lower by year's end. And when I say supposed to, I mean that was the sort of popular wisdom. And that's where the Fed was going with this because inflation was getting to be under control. They started inflation at 8% in 2022, just under. And now they got it down to about 3%. Now they have a target of 2%, but at least we were getting there. They were predicting 5 rate cuts over the course of 2025. Now we'll be lucky if we get 1. And it's all because of this nonsense. Because the occupant of the White House seems to think that tariffs work in a way that they do not work. Now I've been trying to find any economist that's not on the White House payroll willing to tell me where the silver lining is to this. How does this work out? How does this not completely damage the U.S. consumer? I don't got anything. So what's happened is, just to reiterate, we have more houses coming to market. That supply has gone up, and demand has gone down because the interest rate is not only still elevated, but it's higher than it even was last month. So increased interest rates drive demand down. More inventory coming to market drives supply up. Anyone who's taken Econ 101 will tell you if supply goes up and demand goes down, prices fall. And that's where we're at. It's not going to be 2008, 9, and 10 where prices fell over 50% over the course of 8 months. It's not going to be that crazy, but it's just going to come down. I was predicting about a 1 to 2%, maybe as high as 3% correction in our area, Southern California, over 2025. Now I'm telling you, probably going to be closer to 5%. And I hope I'm wrong about that. I really do. But what I will tell you for certain, as a matter of fact, I have a bet going on this. I will tell you for certain that we will exit 2025 with prices lower on average in Southern California, in Santa Clarita, than we entered 2025. And I made a bet on this. Those of you who know me know I've had a beard my entire life. I grew my first beard when I was like 16. And my wife and my daughter have never even seen me without a beard except for maybe 10 minutes when I was involved with a television project about 10 years ago. They made me shave it. I have made a bet that I will shave my beard if we do not exit 2025 with housing prices on average in our area being lower than they started 2025. And I'm pretty precious about my beard, so if I'm willing to make that bet, you might want to pay some attention. But let's go over just some of the numbers, because this is where it gets important. This is the slowest April sales pace since 2009. This is based on contracts signed in February and March before mortgage interest rates moved higher. In other words, it's going to be worse next month. Housing inventory surged 9%, this is nationwide, 9% in April, making it 21% higher year after year. Remember, that number in California is not 21%. That number in California, that's the national number. That number in California is 40%. There's some areas where the prices are still doing fine. Chicago, New York, a lot of the East Coast, prices haven't fallen yet. They will, but they haven't fallen yet because they haven't seen the rush of inventory that we've seen. This is the highest supply we've had in the last 5 years. More supply is starting to cool prices. Both the south and western regions have seen the prices begin to fall. And that's from CNBC. That's Diana Olick's report. The contract cancellation rate in April was also approximately twice that it has usually been. And some economics see that due to the drop in stock prices, which was also caused by the tariff nonsense. So, yeah, that's the other thing. People are backing out at record rates. We haven't seen people back out of escrows like this in the last 10 years. So, all that put together, we got some problems. So let's talk about California home sales in particular. California home sales. Amid the environment of economic uncertainty during April, California's housing market retreated for the second straight month in a row. If you look at buyers, it's actually 4 months in a row. April sales pace fell 3.4% from 277,030 homes sold in March. That was down 0.2% from a year ago. To an annualized basis, April's sales level was the lowest in 3 months. Statewide pending sales in April slipped from last year's level for the fifth consecutive month as housing sentiment continued to trend downward. The dip in open escrows is likely due to mortgage rates spiking and staying elevated throughout the month of April after President Trump's reciprocal tariff agreement, which, by the way, they're not reciprocal. Why do we keep saying that? Why do we let him get away with that? They're just tariffs. They're not reciprocal in any way. Nobody else is charging us 145% or whatever it is today. But it's because of the tariff announcement on April 2nd. So that is what is going on. And just to go over some of our local numbers, active listings in our area. In January, they were up 130 units. February, they were up 35 units. March, they were up 40 units. April, they're up 25. They're also staying on the market longer. Active listings in January are up 90 units. These are ones that have been on the market. Active listings in February up 67, March 75, and April 75 again. So both new listings and active listings are going up a lot, which means new stuff's coming on the market and it's not selling. Also, old stuff's not selling, so it's hanging out longer. The average listing time, you get those numbers next month, is much, much higher. It's almost doubled in my office from what I've seen. Now, if you look at the San Fernando Valley, which has a lot more inventory, January, total number of listings up 730, February 157, March 174, and April 92. The active listings, 415 in January, 138 in February, 240 in March, and 219 in April. And you notice that number is it was highest in January, but it's crawling up over time because things are staying on the market longer. That's the story, kids. I mean, that's just what's going on. There is just not enough stability in the market for anybody to know which way they're going. Banks don't know if they can lower interest rates, raise interest rates. Even the Fed doesn't know what to do. And it's all caused by instability at the top. And I'm not even getting to the point that Congress is supposed to be the one who levies tariffs, not the president, because Congress is just so pathetic these days. Not that they weren't before, but they've got just so kowtowed to Donald Trump that they just gave him the keys to the kingdom and turned around and walked away. I wonder why we're paying senators. They can just go home. Apparently, we don't need them for anything. It's embarrassing, frankly. It is embarrassing to see the president of the United States send things out as tweets. It is embarrassing to watch the President of the United States give a damn about what celebrity is hot or who isn't, or became hotter or less hotter, because it's not a platform for his personal grievances. That's not what the job is for. He is supposed to be working for us. And yet I get the impression every time I hear him speak that he thinks we work for him. And until or unless that changes, this is going to get worse, because he is not the economic genius that he pretends to be on TV. Not by any stretch of the imagination. If you look at his history, you'll find that out. And now we were letting him run the entire economy basically by himself? How do you suppose this is going to end? Because it ain't going to be good. So I hope I'm wrong, because I live here. I really do. And like I say, I really try to keep my politics out of the show, because it's not a political show. But the politics have really leached into the housing market, and it is affecting their prices. I find it offensive that my house will be worth less at the end of this year than it was at the beginning of this year because of the occupant of the White House. And because of this nonsense with tariffs, which will not work. I'm not an economist. I'm certainly not a trade representative or a genius in any stretch of the imagination, but I have yet to find any economist anywhere who is not on the White House payroll who thinks this is going to work. But yet I get people all over the place. Several Nobel laureates have all said, this is not going to work. It's not how tariffs work. They are a tax. That's what they are. It's foolish to call them anything else. So that's where we're at. And I want to talk about one last thing, because this is just a personal thing, because it affects the markets, and I just found it totally offensive. Moody's, there are 3 credit rating agencies. Moody's was the last holdout that still had the United States' debt at AAA rated. They have downgraded our rating. Now things happen. That's not good, but things happen, and it's going to cause a problem. My biggest problem with this is that apparently we have a Secretary Treasury, Scott Bessent, who is, I don't know, maybe he was kicked in the head by a horse after he got the job. I don't know what caused this, but he's clearly left his brain on neutral, because when he was asked about the downgrade in Moody's downgrade on America's credit rating, this is America's credit has been downgraded because of this tariff nonsense and instability. His response was, that is a lagging indicator, and who cares? You know what? The Treasury Secretary cannot say who cares to a downgrade in the U.S.'s credit rating. And the reason he can't do that is because movement in the 10-year Treasury yield often echoes the 30-year mortgage rate. Gains result in more expensive home financing costs, while declines translate into savings for buyers. In other words, because our credit rating went down, the interest rate has gone up. Now, if you are the Secretary of the Treasury, you have an interest in controlling those rates. You do not have an interest in saying stupid stuff on Sunday morning shows, which cause the markets to panic and cause rates to go up. I have a client who's buying a house right now. They're going to pay more in their mortgage because Scott Bessent is a moron. they're going to pay more in their mortgage because he decided to go on the air and say Moody's credit rating doesn't matter. It does matter. Whether he likes it or not, it does. I don't like Moody's. I got all kinds of problems with Moody's going back to 2008. They're a publicly traded company who rates stocks. So you can buy into their company and then have them rate your stock. That is a problem in and of itself, a conversation for another time. But for sure, it matters. It absolutely matters to every single person who has an adjustable interest rate. It matters to everybody in this country who has a credit card, a car loan, etc. Because interest rates have gone up because of his nonsense. And yet this is our Treasury Secretary. I'd like to give him a basic math skills test to see if he could pass it. Because he doesn't pass the sanity test. He had to know when he opens his mouth, markets get affected. I know the president doesn't care, but you'd think the Secretary of the Treasury would have a little bit more sense than to say it doesn't matter. Because it does. Whether he wants it to or not, it does. And it's affecting all of us. So there's my politics for the month. Again, I really try to stay out of the political end of this. I try to just call the balls and the strikes, but unfortunately, what's gone on between the Treasury Secretary's ridiculous responses to questions he knew he was going to get on the Sunday shows, that's why he was there, and the president's general behavior over tariffs, there are choppy waters ahead, and it is all completely unnecessary. The interest rate would be on its way down right now, and housing prices would still be fine had it not been for this. So, yay, fun. All right, happy to gotten that out of the system. So that's what's going on with the market. The prices are coming down, interest rates are still high, and now you know who's to blame. And feel free to call me and tell me I'm wrong. People often do. You can always reach me at 661-714-1400. That's my cell phone. You can reach me at that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If I'm on air, if I don't answer, please send me a text. Again, 661-714-1400. And again, my name is Rich Szerman. You're listening to The Real Estate Fix on KHTS, FM 98.1, AM 1220, your hometown station. When we come back from break, and please listen to the break. When we come back, we're going to have Sophia in. We're going to talk about HOA stuff and this problem in our community that happened with an HOA. And it happens to lots of people like this. So if you live in a house with an HOA, and you probably do, you might want to listen in. So listen when we come back. Thanks, guys. Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening to The Break. You've reached The Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Szerman, on KHTS 98.1 FM, AM 1220, your hometown station. And thank you guys for tuning in. As promised, special guest in the booth today, I have Sophia Lesseos, who is a KHTS reporter, recently fairly new with KHTS, and she's been at Fox and NBC. I think NBC, I think I saw.
Yeah, NBC, ABC7, yeah.
Yeah, just all over the place. So very lucky to have you here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're a great team in KHTS in the news department. And we have homeowner Mandy Shaw in with us as well. So we're going to talk a little bit. Hello.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning. Welcome to the show. Thank you guys for coming in. We're going to talk a little bit about a story that, if you guys missed it, it's a really good story, a really important story if you live in Santa Clarita. That Sophia did. The title of the article, if you want to look it up, is Newhall Neighbors Claim KB Homes is Bullying the Community, because they are. It has to do with the Trenton Heights community, and we're going to get into that in a second. But I want to give you a couple of facts about HOAs that I just found fascinating in prepping for this. Some of the stuff I knew, some of it I found out. I didn't know 29% of the U.S. population lives in a community association, as we call them in California, HOAs. And that number goes up every single year. And here's the number that really kind of blew my wig off. Nearly 80% of new homes currently being built have HOAs. 80%. That's, what is that, 8 in 10. That's crazy. That's an awful lot. That's a national number. That's not even a California number. Here's some other fun stuff. One of the reasons HOAs are so incredibly popular is because, and you got to take a step back to think about this, a lot of HOAs do a lot of what the government should be doing for you. So that's why town councils and cities tend to love HOAs, because they're privatizing government responsibilities. And that's kind of the problem that you guys got into here, which we're going to get into in just a second. So I want to give you one other set of statistics, and this is California. In California, 64.9% of homeowners, so almost 65% of homeowners, live in an HOA community. That's up from 49% in 2009. So that's a heck of an increase. So that means that's approximately 35.6% of California's population, roughly 14.6 million people, live in an HOA community. And the average HOA in California, the average HOA nationally is $300 to $400 a month. The average HOA in California is $500 to $600 a month. So even if you're on the national average, you're paying $3,600 to $4,800 per year for an HOA. And a lot of those HOAs don't do a whole heck of a lot, except stuff that city government should be doing anyway. There was one I found in Florida where they actually they have speed trap cameras. If you do more than 15 miles an hour going home, they can ticket you. And the fines are even higher than they are in the municipality. And if you don't pay them, unlike if you don't pay a ticket to the city of Santa Clarita or county of LA, you can get a warrant out for your arrest. You can have all kinds of problems, but they can't take your house. If you owe the HOA and don't pay them, they will institute a lien, and they can absolutely take your house.
That's
Most common
crazy.
question, yeah.
That is insane.
The biggest question I got in going through the thing that seemed to surprise people the most and kind of putting this together over the last week and talking to clients in my database was a lot of them, even people who live in HOAs right now, had no idea the HOA had the power of foreclosure. I had one client who bought a house out of foreclosure because the HOA had foreclosed, did not know that the HOA could foreclose. Why do you think you got your house? So those are some of the crazy facts with HOAs. So let's get back to the news story because I want to hear from you guys specifically. So I'll just read you the tagline to it. It's a group of frustrated homeowners in New Hall development say they've been left without access to amenities they've been paying for. Praying too, I suppose. All while a $1 billion company, Calvin & Broad, continues to hold control over their community. So, Sophia, why don't you kind of kick that off? Tell us kind of what happened.
Sure. So I do want to actually start by saying how we even got the story to begin with.
Please, yeah.
So Mandy actually had emailed into our station. Just our general info. I think you had emailed either Jerry or actually our info email, and just stating that she had absolutely no idea who to turn to at this point because it was just a very frustrating situation that they've been dealing with for the last 2 years of her moving into the Trenton Heights neighborhood in New Hall, which is actually not even that far from here, and that they have been dealing with essentially the developer, KB Homes, telling them that they needed a couple of permits that they needed to open their pools and the amenities that they've been paying for the last few years. So I just thought that was very interesting when I had read this email, talked to my boss, and I was like, hey, do you mind if I just reach out to her and have a conversation?
I think there's a story here, yeah.
And she said, go right ahead. That's totally fine. I met with, I called Mandy first, and I had just said, hey, do you want to just kind of talk to me about this? And I will swing by if we see that there's something there. It essentially blew up, and I had no idea all the details until we actually chatted. Mandy even walked me around the entire neighborhood. I went and grabbed some drone shots as well of the entire neighborhood. We even looked at all of the amenities that they were paying for, and I was pretty baffled, and I would have been very, very upset if I was in that situation, if that happened to me. So I'm really glad that Mandy even reached out to us, said, hey, this is a situation, and we had no idea.
Mandy, why don't you tell us what was going on? What was the problem you were having?
Well, the intention of buying our home was that we were buying in a pool community. I have a lot of teenagers, and a couple of my kids are literally ready to graduate high school and move away to college before having ever had access to our pool, which we intentionally, bought in that area because of. And what was happening was we were getting a lot of excuses and a lot of broken promises about, well, it's going to open as far back as November of the year prior to, October and November of the year prior to it actually did open. We were told by KB as well as by our property management that, we need to do the key fobs. They aren't working. We have to have the, Wi-Fi connected. We don't have a permit. And actually what they were doing at the very end before the pool eventually opened was telling our property management company that they had to apply to LA County Health Code for a particular permit that had not been applied for. And we literally had been told, okay, your pool is opening in days. Okay, sorry, no, we have to get this permit. And that's when I said, gosh, what can I do? Maybe I'll talk to the media. And then everything happened.
What was just baffling to me, and Rich, we were talking about this, Mandy, we had also talked about this. When I had interviewed Mandy, I had written the entire story. I wanted to do my due diligence and reach out to KB Homes and just say, hey, working on this story, what do you guys have to say? What are these permits that you guys are saying that you don't have? And within 12 hours, because we had decided to hold the story, post it in the morning. Within 12 hours, somehow KB Homes found the permits and somehow opened the pool and sent me an email saying, we are so pleased to inform the Trenton Heights community that we finally found the permits and all of the resources are actually available now.
Yeah, like a Simpsons cartoon. Smithers just had it in his desk. We just didn't look. I mean, come on. We also have been looking for the permits with title companies in the city and the county. You did a Freedom of Information request as well. And still, no one can find the permits. No. So these mystery permits that had to be produced and put together before they could open the pool, which they built and was running and everything else, Still have not. I still haven't seen them. We've been looking for them.
Have
KB
not.
Home still hasn't produced them, but at least the pool and stuff is now open, and that is well. Let's ask you, man. Do you think that they did that because of the story, or was it just an incredible coincidence?
If it wasn't because of the story, it was an incredible coincidence that it happened to open the very next day to the cheers of the neighborhood.
Well, I would think you guys have been there paying HOA dues. Well, the HOA dues are what, $300-400 a month?
They have varied based on the phases of the construction,
Sure.
but it's about $350 a month.
So you're shelling out money for utilities, or facilities rather, you don't get to use.
And in particular, the people who have been there since the very beginning of the development for several years have been paying for that and not having any access to anything.
Well, my daughter likened it because I heard her explain. It's always fun listening to 19-year-olds explain things to each other. She was explaining this to her friend, and she said it's sort of like if I bought a ticket for Magic Mountain, and when I went in, they wouldn't let me. They shut down all the roller coasters.
It's pretty close to that.
Yes, that's pretty. I got something about Coffin Road that you guys might not know. This is interesting. I was doing a little. Well, you probably must be, but I was doing some research on Coffin Road just out of curiosity. Do you know KB Homes has been under an FCC consent decree since 1979?
I did not know.
I was
that.
born in 71. They've been in trouble with the Justice Department since 1979. They violated that consent decree in 91, 2003, and 2005. And every time they violate it, they get sued and they have to pay out millions of dollars every single time. I don't think KB advertises that. I doubt on their brochure it says, under a consent decree since 1979, like it's something to be proud of. But it is not a surprise with a company that has that checkered a history, that checkered a past, that they behave like this. This is a minor thing.
Rich, Mandy and I were just talking outside right now, and we were saying, have you heard any negative news about KB Homes before? No.
I haven't.
No.
They're very, very good at keeping.
And they have a very good media department
Yes.
because I had a very interesting conversation with somebody at KB Homes. When I had posted the story initially, they did not give me any information, did not send me a statement at all until we had posted the story. And then I got a very interesting email, and I'm going to read it to you
Please.
guys,
Yes, please.
that sent a statement saying that they were pleased to confirm that the amenities at Trenton Heights neighborhood are now open, and KV Homes finally received the permits late last year, providing all the necessary documents to PMP management. Now, what they did send me is that just several facts in my story are severely inaccurate, including the headline of bullying, and that if I could notify them when I update my story. They were asking me to put their statement at the very top of my story and even essentially change the entire story because it was severely inaccurate. But didn't actually point out, didn't actually point out what the severe inaccuracies were. And also, I did have bullying and a lot of quotes from Mandy and other things that Mandy was telling me from homeowners that they had told her. So this was still an opinion.
Well, two thoughts. I've never met a bully in my life who knew they were a bully. I mean, no bully ever says, I'm going to wake up today and bully somebody. That's not the way that works. Nobody thinks of themselves as the bad guy when they're the bad guy in the story. That's my first thought. And the second one, it would be, that's not how journalism works. You would know better than I am because you're a journalist and I'm not. Right. But I'm pretty sure the subject who's the bad guy in a story, who's committed malfeasance that is demonstrable, you were paying for something you weren't getting, that's not up for debate, doesn't get to call the shots.
No.
If I also my third thought on this, just to add to it, is I wonder how much KB spends on media fires every year. That could be that if they just did their job properly and were honest with people, they could save that money. You would think as a corporate net good, they would just behaving better is a better way to go. They have a public face. They're a publicly traded company. That's why they jumped on the story the way they did. They're very, very worried about this story catching fire and becoming viral and them losing stock price. It's the same thing with the banks. It's the same thing I deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, it definitely just seems like somebody messed up, wanted to kind of put it under the rug, and then hoped that nobody noticed. But Mandy, actually, we were talking about this. So refresh my memory, but you were saying that you were promised these amenities would be open in June of 2022.
There was advertisement in the neighborhood via billboard that, the veranda coming soon, and with artist renditions of how it's going to look. The reason why I can point to bullying is because just a few days prior to me calling KHTS and prior to the pool opening, we'd have one of our homeowners association meetings. And to the degree KB controls our homeowners association board to the degree that they are able to choose what time of day we have our HOA meetings. And we have them during the afternoon, usually 2 or 2:30, because that suits them. It doesn't suit the majority of us who work a regular schedule and would like to participate in HOA meetings in the evening hours after work.
Hard to believe that's not intentional.
Who's off work at 2:30? No one.
Yeah, I've been able to participate a couple of times just because my work schedule would allow. So during the most recent meeting prior to the pool opening, KB board members had told our property management company that we were lacking this particular permit that was required in order for us to use our pool, and KB told the property management company that it was their responsibility to apply for this permit. Our representative with our property management company said, okay, this is new and different for me. The majority of the communities that we manage are existing communities. We don't typically take over one that's transitioning from builder-owned to homeowner-owned. So I haven't had to do this before, but okay, to please our homeowners and get their pool available to them, we'll apply for this permit. And we were going to be charged a $50 fee for us to apply for this permit. And lo and behold, a couple of days later, after contacting Sophia, the pool opened, and suddenly we were told that this permit materialized.
I still don't understand what exact permit they're talking about, because I went to the county of Los Angeles. I also went to the city of Santa Clarita asking for these magical permits that you had to get, even though they were the builders who, in my opinion, should have gotten the permits to begin with. And Rich, you did your research too.
Yeah, I talked to actually one of the title companies I talked to, because title companies are great for finding these things for us in the real estate business. They're wonderful. One of the title companies I talked to is befuddled. They have no idea how you could open a community pool and not have the permits on file. That is, and to say the permits are somehow, I love this pointing that it's certainly not the multi-billion-dollar builder corporation who's responsible for these permits. It must obviously be the management company. Two questions. First one is, who picked the management company? Was it the H.O.A.?
No, that was
Coffin and Broad?
Yeah,
Imagine my surprise.
It was in place as we moved in.
Oh, of course it was. Now, I have another question. How many seats are there on the board total?
5 seats.
How many of those seats are occupied by Kaufman and Broad?
They have the majority with 3 seats.
So you basically have, out of 5, you have 2 seats held by homeowners and 3 held by the company. So they win every fight. They win every vote. They win. Not only can they set the time of day, but they can decide what happens and what doesn't. It is not unusual for a builder to keep majority control of an HOA as you're transitioning to the homeowners. So it takes a couple of months. It doesn't take years. Should never take years. And what they should have done very early on is at least give up one of those board seats. By the time you had the majority of the homes, see, KB does something that not all, a lot of the big builders do this, but not all builders do this. What they do is they wait until every single house has been built. And that's the loophole that they're using to trap you guys. From what I understand, there's an easement on the property that goes back almost 100 years that they're saying they can't build on and thus complete the project, which means you can't have control of your own HOA, despite the fact you're spending money on it, until they complete those houses. Right. Well, that permit was there before anyone in this room was born, before anybody currently working at Kaufman & Broad was born, and it's still there now, and it was damn sure there when they designed the development. Now, maybe they thought that an old easement that's been out of use, that they could get rid of it, and that's a perfectly reasonable way to think. But when that didn't happen, or at least hasn't happened up to now, right, how dare they say that this is the reason that we can't give you control of your own HOA, which you pay for?
What also doesn't make any sense to me, too, is the fact that there is 85 homeowners, and KB Homes is claiming that they own the majority of the property there. Well, no, that's not necessarily true, because there's supposed to be 93 homes. So I know I'm not the best at math. I am a writer, but 85 is definitely a larger majorty than
liberal
7
arts has served
homes.
you well. You have the math down. Yeah. I have a history degree, what I know. Anyway, it's clearly just they're passing the buck. That's what these guys do. It's that sort of thing. And Kaufman & Broad, unfortunately, I think they pay less attention, less proper attention to their bottom line, because it's more. You build and sell houses. You want everyone to think well of you. People thinking bad of you tends to depress your stock price. But KB Home is just a giant monster that kind of eats itself. They don't seem to be that engaged with the houses of the homeowners that they sell. I mean, they set up the HOA, they set up the management company, and then they blame those 2 entities for them not getting their job done. I want that gig. Right. I would love to be able to get paid as well as KB executives get paid to screw up. I would love that. I have no shortage of screw-ups. I can do it constantly. I'm sure I could give KB a run for their money. Mine don't typically hurt other people, though, and that is kind of the point here. Right. So, so those of you who didn't know that, builders retain control of the HOA board until, in some cases, they finish the houses. And so you might wind up in a situation like Mandy did, where you're paying an HOA fee for going on 2 years. You can walk by where the facilities are supposed to be. You can see that they are finally at some point built, and yet you still don't have access to them because they can't get key fobs, or they need a permit that heretofore they didn't need. Nobody knows anything about. One thing after another, one excuse after another, which is just a recipe for stress, frustration, and stupidity. They have to build it at some point anyway. They have to get it together and get it done. It's not like a matter of choice, but they just don't seem to feel compelled to do so, I guess. Yeah. Which is why we come and you wrote the story, and the story becomes a thing, and
we have Mandy
you
here
spoke
today.
up. Yeah.
As another example of the power that they have over us, during that same recent early April HOA meeting, the board voted on whether or not the builder or the HOA would pay for the installation of a necessary sign near the pool. The board voted for the HOA to pay the $475 fee to have this necessary sign installed near the pool.
Wait. I know a guy. They can do it for a lot less.
Yeah, I thought
There's
so
a company
too.
called Feathers. They're wonderful.
I
They'll
thought,
do anything.
I got a
Trust
glue
me, it's
gun,
not
I'll
going to
go
cost you
over there.
$400.
So, we were present during that vote. Our 2 homeowners on the board voted against it. The three KB employees voted for it. So they're avoiding costs down to the degree of a $450 sign that the builder should be responsible for.
Yeah, heads they win, tails you lose.
Mandy, I'm curious, can you also just give us a quick opinion, about, because we're running out of time, an opinion, just telling us your opinion and what the other homeowners were feeling during this entire scenario?
Well, the homeowners are very frustrated. All of us have a group chat. We've been expressing our dissatisfaction with why can't we just have access to our pool? Gosh, the kids want to swim. We want to use the facilities that we've been paying for. So overall, it not only colors our opinion of KB, but it spills over to the property management company too, because they're really stuck in the middle. They're trying to do a good job for us, but the feeling is that they're really beholden to KB.
They are beholden to KB, and they can't do their job without KB's help. Guys, stay with me through the break. I want to make sure we get the advertisers in so the station doesn't get upset and the advertisers stay happy. So listen through the break. We're definitely got more about this to talk about when we come back. You're listening to KHTS, FM 98.1, AM 1220, your hometown station. Hey everybody, thanks for listening. Welcome back. You're listening to The Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Szerman, on KHTS, FM 98.1, AM 1220, your hometown station. And we have with us Sophia Lesseos of, I'm mispronouncing your last name, I know I am, of KHTS
You're
News
adding
Department.
an
Yeah, and Mandy Shaw, homeowner in town. We're talking about the Trenton Heights community, what went on with the HOA there, and just the ridiculous behavior of Kaufman and Broad. And there's definitely some other stuff some other ground we want to cover here. Actually, before we move on to anything else, I do want to talk to you a little bit. You were saying in the break that they pressure you guys to rate them positively, so you're paying for stuff you're not getting, and then the sales office wants you to tell them how great they are.
Yeah, there's a series of meetings with homeowners as construction is completed, as well as after you've moved into your home and you have had an opportunity to use your,
Pool that doesn't exist,
but also your faucets, etc.
Yeah.
And so they come out and they have a survey from many of their different departments, all the way from the salespeople to the construction managers and KB in general. And they really do, talk to you about how well they've done for you, and really that you should mark all 10s for them, because that reflects great on them, and they don't have to go to KB corporate and explain themselves. So there's a lot of pressure to rate them higher than maybe you really feel they are.
Do they know? Is your name on the form or stuff when you're writing? Do they know who's rating them, or is it blind?
Oh, no. It's by
They know
address and homeowner name, yes.
I'm curious, what did you rate them?
I did give them good ratings because I worked in customer service for a long time.
Yeah.
People tend to give bad ratings when it's bad, but they never say anything good when it's good.
My wife will appreciate this because she's the attorney in the crowd. She's smarter than I am. I learned this a long time ago. Do you know they don't do that because, Mandy, if you could just do me a favor, because I'm just a lowly salesperson here and I barely make enough money to buy a can of beans. So if you could help me out, that's not why. It's a hedge against liability. That's why I asked if it was anonymous or not. Because if it was to help the salesperson, it would be anonymous. When they ask you to put your name on a rating, it is because, well, Mandy, I'm terribly sorry you're upset now, but a year ago when you bought this house, you were telling us how great we were.
Yeah, you didn't have any complaints then.
So how could we be that great? And so it's just because you want money out of it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It is what my wife would refer to as an affirmative defense. And it's nonsense. And they do that, and they have you put your name on it because it becomes a defense for them should you choose to go after them in court. That's what that's about. It is not about helping people in the sales office. It's not about helping a construction manager get a raise. It has nothing to do with any of that. It has everything to do with liability.
Yeah, dotting their I's and crossing their T's.
That's what it's for. Okay, so you guys have been there for almost 2 years without facilities. The facilities finally open up because Sophia did the story, which is great. So thank you, KHTS. And those of you who are listening, if you got one of these things, let us know. We're here. It's community. It's hometown radio, man. This is what we're here to help out with. It's not just
we will
politics
talk
and
to you.
ads.
I will call you. I promise you. I will. And
I know this is shocking because I was shocked the first time I saw this as well. For a little hometown radio station, the news division here is really good.
Thank you.
Really spectacular. You and Jade and a lot of the people who work with you guys are fantastic. I'm constantly amazed at the work you guys have managed to turn in. It's been very useful for my clients and my business as well. So, okay, we talked about builder control of the HOA. We talked about why they didn't turn it over and all that good stuff. We talked about their nonsense. We should change our article hysterical and not use the word bullying. You're nicer than I am. I would have used much harsher language. I'm not a journalist.
We have FCC.
Fair enough. Yeah, I know. That's my one big rule. I'm not allowed to curse on the air. And so far, so good. We'll see. Maybe with a story, who knows? But so far, so good. What did the builder tell you? I want to hear this. What did the builder tell you about updates as far as you're getting this? Because you moved into a house 2 years before you saw stuff going on, but you still had a pool you couldn't swim in and a kitchen you couldn't use and HOA dues you were paying. So what was their process to update you guys? I told there was a billboard at some point.
Well, there isn't anything proactive communicated from KB. It's not very transparent. We have reached out. We have asked. The interface that we have as homeowners is mostly with our HOA, our property management company. So there isn't really a lot of response directly from KB. I did have a pretty good email correspondence back and forth with one of the customer service people, but it dropped off. And there isn't any, it's just a series of excuses or explanations that don't come to fruition.
Well, work is expensive. Excuses are free.
Exactly. And Mandy, in our initial email, I'm going to read actually what you had told, not initial email, actually in our initial conversation when we did the interview. So you had said, and I quote, "We feel hopeless. This is our home, this is our neighborhood, and yet everything is dictated by a massive corporation that doesn't live here, doesn't care, and won't let go of the control." Do you stand by that?
Yeah, I do stand by
That's
that.
the crux of the matter.
My husband and I bought a safe, comfortable, and beautiful home for our family, and we feel nothing but gratitude for being able to do that. So upon moving in and moving into our community and the excitement with these amenities that we're going to be able to use, and a house full of teenagers need to get over there across the street and swim out some energy, we felt, we still do feel incredibly grateful, but it just became more and more apparent that we were sold a bill of goods and that we're not able to use these facilities. And there are a lot of complaints in the neighborhood that now we're able to use the pool. We're still in the process of determining whether or not we're going to have to pay a fee to rent our own kitchen facility, or if we're just going to be able to reserve it, whether or not the HOA company is going to charge us a fee to process the paperwork to see whether we can reserve it.
Oh my gosh.
There's questions about the landscaping. There's a laundry list of homeowner complaints about their homes that I honestly don't know if they are run-of-the-mill or if they are shoddy construction. I don't know. I couldn't speak to that. But the fact that they have 7 or 8 vacant lots that, are dusty when the wind blows because it's nothing but dirt. We have asked, can we have a community park? Can we have a dog park? Can we have trees? My layperson's understanding is that you cannot build any infrastructure over an easement. So do I stand by what I said initially? Yes, we do. We're happy. We're enjoying the pool now, but we're still not satisfied because we still don't have autonomy over our community.
Well, it's just broken promises.
Yes.
Well, they also seem to have made a mistake as far as getting the easements sorted out before they could build houses on it, and yet they're using their own mistake to punish the other people there. You also can't get any of these issues dealt with because you do not have control of the HOA. You have 2 out of 5 seats. And that's a situation that's going to apparently be maintained until they figure out how to get the easements sorted out, which, again, not your problem, their problem. You're not making money on the houses they're building. They are. This is a for-profit corporation. It is their job to do these things, and they are not doing it. And when that sort of thing happens, you need to call them out. I think what you did was a very good thing. It was a very brave thing. I don't think too many people have the intestinal fortitude these days to speak up. I think that was fantastic. And Sophia did a great job with the story. Those of you guys who have not read the story, again, it's titled Newhall Neighbors Claim KB Homes is Bullying the Community. You can find it all over the place. You can certainly find it at the KHTS website. It is a very good story. It's a very well-written story, too. Quick read, and it'll tell you what's going on with Trenton Heights. And this is not unusual. It's unusual that a story got written and that sort of stuff, but it's not an unusual situation. So if you're facing one of these, call the station, call me, call Sophia, whatever. You can always get a hold of me. Any questions, I'll direct you to the right place. You can get me 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You guys know this. 661-714-1400. That is my personal cell phone number. Again, 661-714. I always tell people, because please don't call me at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'll sometimes answer. Don't be surprised. Give me a call if you have any problems with this. Call the station if you have any problems with something similar. Thank you guys for listening. I very much appreciate it. You've been listening to The Real Estate Fix. I'm your host, Rich Szerman.